Everybody, and welcome back to Flock's Nest Sports Podcast. As always, I am one of your hosts, Dallas Reppin 52 of the Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis.
As always, I'm the other half, Brendan Rippin 54, Bobby Wagner of the Seattle Seahawks.
We got a great episode for you guys today. I know we missed last week, just a lot going on. But with this time of year, we are going to talk post-NFL draft and what our teams are looking like and what they're kind of doing. We're also going to talk the NBA and NHL as they are in the midst of their playoff season. So to kick us off, we're going to start with the NBA entering round 2.
First, we'll hit just a couple quick breaking news points, and then we'll get into the playoffs. The three breaking news are all coaches' firings. So to start off, Billy Donovan, the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, has been dismissed after 6 seasons with the team. So the Chicago Bulls will be looking for a new head coach this offseason.
No surprise there.
Yeah. The next one is the Milwaukee Bucks have fired Doc Rivers and then replaced Doc Rivers with Taylor Jenkins, who was formerly the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. The Bucks have their new head coach after firing Doc Rivers. The most recent one is the Orlando Magic have dismissed head coach Jamal Mosley. Following 3 straight years of being eliminated in the first round, the Orlando Magic will be looking for a new head coach. So that catches up on the breaking news.
Yeah, none of them very surprising. I think the Bucks need to pick a direction at some point.
Yes.
But
I feel like we'll have a lot of those conversations with teams this season.
So yeah, none of these are surprising, but good luck to them in their next endeavors, and yeah.
All right, on to the playoffs. So in the first round, the Oklahoma City Thunder swept the Phoenix Suns 4-0. No real surprise.
Unsurprising.
The Lakers beat the Rockets 4-2 in their series. I would say a mild surprise considering the Lakers didn't have Luka or Austin Reeves.
And I know a lot of fans and analysts and things like that thought, okay, LeBron had a good game or two, but once KD came back, it would kind of flip the script, and that was not the case. The Lakers just kind of dominated that series and dominated KD.
Yeah, it was rough.
Right.
The Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Denver Nuggets 4-2. Not a great showing from the Nuggets. In what was an upset. So not great.
I think the Wolves are still designed perfectly to beat the Nuggets. I don't expect much from them after this. Maybe they'll beat the Spurs, but I doubt they'll be in the actual final championship game. But the Nuggets have a defense problem, and that was very apparent in this series.
They have some real issues that we're going to see how they fix. And truthfully, I don't know how they do it. Either real change needs to happen, or this is just where the Nuggets are going to be at for the next few years. And then it's going to suck, because after this, it's pretty much nothing for the Nuggets. They have done quite a bit to go all in around this core, and if it doesn't work around this core, they're kind of fucked.
And right now, it's not working.
Yeah. So, there's that. The next series was the San Antonio Spurs beat the Portland Trailblazers 4-1. The only reason this wasn't a sweep is Wemby was hurt for a game, as he had the concussion. Yeah. So, a gentleman's sweep that should have probably just been a standard sweep.
Should have just been a sweep. But, the Trailblazers keep some dignity and walk off into vacation knowing They didn't get swept.
Pretty much. They were better than the Suns.
This is true.
Um, that rounds out the Western Conference first round. The Eastern Conference first round was the Pistons versus the Magic. The Pistons won that in 7, 4-3. It was a really good series, surprising with the 1-8 matchup, but good series. Detroit makes it out of there alive and avoids the upset.
I feel like the East just had slightly better matchups
Yeah.
overall. The Pistons did put up a fight. Kind of thought going into Game 7 they might take it, but it just was not enough.
Yeah. And then the next series was the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Toronto Raptors. Cleveland won that series in 7, 4-3. Another really good series. They came down right to it. So another good one.
It was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I kind of thought the Cavaliers had the Raptors easily, and then the Raptors put up a hell of a fight.
Yeah, it was definitely a good battle. The next series was the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. The Knicks won that one in 6, 4-2. Another good series, but I think the Knicks were always going to win that series and just looked dominant for the most part.
The Knicks, I think, were always going to win it. I think there were a couple of moments where I thought, "Are you in trouble?" Like, it just didn't feel quite like Knicks basketball on a few occasions, but they go into round 2 having won and doing well there so far, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. And then in my opinion, best matchup of the first round was the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers win the series 4-3 in Game 7, completing a 3-1 comeback.
Yep,
The
it
Celtics
was
had a
wild.
3-1 series lead, and the blew it. So, congrats to the 76ers. The Celtics, that's a tough one. That is a tough one to
And
fuck up.
especially with Tatum back and playing as well as he did, a lot of people really thought it was going to be the Knicks Celtics going into the Eastern Conference Championship. So to have them out in round 1,
Yeah,
it's pretty wild. But the 76ers, they just hit that ground running down 3-1 and made a historically phenomenal comeback.
yeah. So awesome there. As we said, round 2 is currently underway. In the West, it is the Thunder and the Lakers. The Thunder currently lead that series 1-0, with Game 2 happening today as we are recording this. So we'll kind of see where that goes for Game 2. The other series in the West is the Timberwolves versus the Spurs. That series is currently tied 1-1 with Game 3 tomorrow. In the
Yeah.
East, go ahead.
I'd kind of be I would assume the Western Conference will come down to Thunder Wolves. Is kind of
We'll see.
my current pick. Wemby is great, and he's having a great postseason, minus the
Concussion?
concussion. I'm just not sure if he can overcome the Wolves.
We will see. Obviously, with these series tied 1-1, still a ton to play for.
I think if they do beat the Wolves, I think a very interesting discussion about Ant-Man needs to be had.
We'll see. There's a lot this postseason for discussions. The next in the East, the two series are Detroit Pistons versus Cleveland Cavaliers. That series is currently 1-0 in favor of Detroit. With Game 2 currently happening as we speak. It is the end of the first quarter, and Detroit has the lead 25-18. So if that holds, the Pistons will take a 2-0 series lead. So we'll kind of see where that goes. And then the other series in the East is the Knicks and the 76ers. The New York Knicks currently have a 2-0 series lead, with Game 3 scheduled for tomorrow. So the Sixers desperately need a win.
I am going to take the Knicks in that series. I was kind of rooting for them last year, and then their season ended the way it did. I think this is a good matchup, but just kind of pulling for the Knicks. I'm not necessarily going to be shocked if it goes the other way, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then think I think Detroit has it, but we'll see.
I would agree.
Alrighty. Well, that does it for basketball. Let us know how your team's doing, what you think so far of the playoffs, and if your bracket is working out the way you hoped.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we will move on to hockey, who is also entering round 2 of their playoffs.
Yes, and we do have one bit of breaking news for hockey, and that is the NHL draft lottery was like yesterday or Tuesday. I can't remember which, but
Okay.
either way, the NHL draft lottery has happened, and the Toronto Maple Leafs win the draft lottery in what is a pretty big surprise. They only had like an 8% chance. They moved up quite a few spots. Unfortunate for the Vancouver Canucks, who were the favorites to win. They moved all the way down to like 4th in the lottery after having the best odds. So unfortunate for them. And then the San Jose Sharks actually came 2nd. So already a really talented young team is going to add more really good young talent. So
and the Maple Leafs are just happy to win something. So
pretty much, it is weird. This is like a random fact, but the last 2 times the Leafs have actually been in the lottery, they've won it.
Huh.
So I don't know.
That's pretty wild.
It's a weird thing. But yeah, so the Leafs get the number 1 overall pick, and we'll kind of see what they do. Currently, the top prospect is Gavin McKenna. The issue with that is he might not be number 1 overall pick because he has an assault charge that has to deal with. Now, the story is on his side for the charge. It still just did happen, so we'll see.
And we'll see how the team wants to handle that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is the breaking news for the NHL. In terms of the first round in the Western Conference, the series were the Colorado Avalanche versus the Los Angeles Kings. The Avalanche swept that series 4-0 and pretty much just kicked the Kings' ass the whole series. A couple games were close, but overall,
this
not a good
was
series.
a great series. As an Avs fan, if you were a Kings fan, I apologize. But you had the breaking of the glass game 1. You had the one game that went into overtime. It was just kind of a great series to get started. I do think it sets expectations for them high, this playoff endeavor, but
they've
it was
so
exciting.
far lived up to those expectations. So we'll see.
So far.
The next series was the Minnesota Wild and the Dallas Stars. Minnesota wins that series 4-2. And it was kind of a surprising that it didn't feel that close of a series. A series that I think a lot of people thought was going to be a battle. It was and it wasn't. It felt like Minnesota kind of dominated that series, and the Stars were only in it because of their power play.
It felt like the Stars were in every game, but you weren't surprised when they were losing.
Yeah.
They made changes to their coaching staff and their front office this season. That often comes with turmoil, especially heading into the playoffs. They have a hell of a roster, so to have them bounced in the first round, I'm sure is disappointing for some. For others, it feels vindicating, but you do with that what you will.
Yeah.
It felt like they were in every game. They just never felt like they were in this series.
Yeah, it was a weird one for them, but still. The next series was the Vegas Golden Knights and the Utah Mammoth. The Knights won that series 4-2. Another series that it felt like the Knights just kind of dominated. Utah got a couple wins, but it just felt like the Knights were in control of that series from the very beginning.
Yeah, agreed. The Knights are a great team, and they continue to prove that season in and out. I think
Yes.
the Mammoth.
It was a good first
It's
step.
been a while since they've been in the playoffs, so to make this step, like you said, I think it's good. But you kind of drew a shit draw with the Knights.
Yeah. So, unfortunate. The next series was the Edmonton Oilers and the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks win that series 4-2, in what was one of the bigger surprises of this
Yeah,
postseason in the NHL. Obviously, the Oilers have one of the best players in the NHL, and also have Leon Draisaitl, who's a great player. But there are some definite questions to be asked in Edmonton, especially when you consider what McDavid did for this team and the lack of moves to shore up their glaring weakness, which is their goaltending.
yeah.
And that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and like to not to discredit what Anaheim has done, but the youth on that team versus the roster of the Oilers, this should not have happened without, like you said, glaring problems that wildly went unaddressed all season.
And it's not that they've been unaddressed all season. They've been unaddressed for Connor McDavid's entire career.
That's fair.
So, and he does you a favor by signing the most ridiculous team-friendly deal I have ever seen in the history of sports.
And you don't fix your goalie. It's
and you
wild.
don't fix the problem.
It's wild.
Yeah, there are some issues in Edmonton. We'll see. I don't expect Connor McDavid to stay there much longer. I'm going to be honest.
No.
So we'll see. That wraps up the first round in the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference started off with the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. This is the first time in a long time the Sabres have been in a playoff series, and they win it 4-2 over the Bruins. It was a pretty solid series. Again, it felt like the Sabres kind of had control of that series from the very beginning and never really let up. So that was really awesome to see. The playoffs in Buffalo was pretty sick, and it's been a long time.
It was just a great kind of hockey watch. Sometimes we get lost in the moment, but a lot of hockey comes down to history. And to, like you said, to see that atmosphere, to see them play as well as they did, it was a lot of fun. You're kind of rooting for them.
Yeah.
In the East, and then not overall, but kind of rooting for them.
Yeah, like you can make it out of the East. You just
but
can't
then like
win it.
You can't win.
The next series was the best series of the first round, and that was the Montreal Canadiens versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Canadiens get the upset 4-3 in Game 7. Great series. Every game was decided by one goal.
Yeah.
Just fantastic series. The last game of the series was incredible. Game 7. The Canadiens won after being outshot 29-9.
It was crazy. It was a crazy final game. I was watching it thinking there was no way.
Yeah.
Tampa had it in the bag, but Montreal, while made fewer shots, made the ones that landed.
Yeah. So, incredible for the Canadiens. Really cool to see that as the Lightning, for the third straight or fourth straight year, bounced in the first round. So some questions to be asked.
You go on to win 3 in a row, and this is what you get.
Yeah, go to 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals, and then haven't made it out of the first round since.
Nope.
So, pretty interesting. The next series was another pretty boring one. The Carolina Hurricanes swept the series over the Ottawa Senators, and what was just an uncompetitive series. So, not a real surprise.
Very uncompetitive. The only interesting point of this series was it had the first fight of the playoffs, which happened about 0.2 seconds into their first game. It was a physical game, but it was never close or competitive or interesting at all.
No, it was not. And then the last series was the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. The Battle of Pennsylvania. The Flyers come out on top 4-2 in the series. Another really good series, actually. Every game was pretty close. You kind of saw it going either way. The Flyers just kind of ended up on top.
Yeah. Another one, kind of an unsurprising appearance into the playoffs, but they played well. It was a good series. I think it's kind of like the Stars and Minnesota for me. Each game was close, but it just felt like the Flyers had it for most of the series. So was not surprised that that's how it fell down. And we shall see.
Yeah. And then on to the second round. We'll start in the West with the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild. That series is currently 2-0 in favor of the Avalanche as they've won 6 straight entering the playoffs. So pretty impressive there. Game 3 is Saturday in Minnesota. So this will be a really good battle.
Yeah. Excited, hoping Colorado maintains, and yeah.
The next series is the Vegas Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks. That series is currently tied 1-1, with Game 3 scheduled for tomorrow. Both games have been close. I kind of expect this series to declare itself here soon. We'll see. I just don't see the Ducks hanging in there, but so far they have. So
Here's the thing. I don't see it, right? But I also thought there was no way they were going to be Edmonton. This has the potential to be a very good series, and very surprising. If Anaheim comes out of this set as the winner, I'm going to be thoroughly impressed with what they've done and the transformation they've made in a single season. They've already done that. They've already done really well, but to beat the Knights would be phenomenal.
very impressive. That wraps up where we're at in round 2 of the Western Conference. To the Eastern Conference, we have the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens. The Sabres lead that series 1-0, with the next game scheduled for tomorrow. I feel like the Canadiens have to win that game if they have any chance in this series. I feel like Buffalo with a 2-0 lead, even with it going back to Montreal, will be tough for the Canadiens, just because I don't think that team's built for comebacks. They're built to lead and
to take leads and hold them.
Yeah.
I think this one is just whichever storyline makes you feel better.
Pretty
That's
much
who you root for, honestly. Like, they're both great. They're both exciting.
Both cool stories.
This could just be a good series to just kind of enjoy.
And then the other one is the Carolina Hurricanes and the Philadelphia Flyers. The Hurricanes have also started their playoffs 6-0, and have a 2-0 series lead, with the games returning to Philly. There is a game scheduled for today. It is on in like a couple minutes. So should be awesome. I'm looking forward to that one. We'll see if the Flyers have any fight in them, or if the Hurricanes can stay undefeated this playoffs.
The Hurricanes are a really good team, and I'm just not sure that the Flyers are going to be able to keep up.
It would be tough, but we'll see.
All right. Well, I do believe that does it for hockey, which means we've kind of, for now at least, wrapped up the NBA and NHL playoffs, and we will continue talking about them next week.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we will move on to the NFL, and as always, starting with breaking news.
Yes. Breaking news in the NFL dating back to prior to the draft. One of the first bits of news was the Cowboys have finalized their extension of Brandon Aubrey. It is a 4-year, $28 million deal with $20 million guaranteed. Obviously, that is the record for a contract for a kicker. No
Yeah.
real surprise.
No.
Best kicker in the league gets paid that way. Seems about right. The next one is the 49ers and Trent Williams have agreed a 2-year, $50 million extension. So Williams staying in San Francisco through the 2027 season. So they get that done. Good for them.
I commend them for finally getting a contract done early so that is no drama going into training camp. So congratulations.
There was still drama. It just didn't make it to training camp.
No, that's fair.
The next one is the Packers have extended wide receiver Jaden Reed to a 3-year deal of $50.25 million, $20 million guaranteed. A decent contract for a decent wide receiver.
Yeah.
And then the next one was a trade during the draft. This happened on day 2, I believe. And it was the Minnesota Vikings traded Jonathan Grenard to the Eagles in exchange for the number 28th overall pick and then a 2027 third. And then the Eagles also got picked 244 in the draft. And as that was this year's drafts. So those picks were made. I couldn't tell you who they'd selected, and I'm not going to go look it up.
Nope, that's fair.
The next trade, also during the draft, was the 49ers traded D. Winters to the Cowboys in exchange for a 5th-round pick in the draft. Again, don't know who they took with it, but it was tied to the draft. So, D. Winters, linebacker, going to the Cowboys. As part of the Jonathan Grenard trade, the Eagles gave him an $100 million extension. I want to say it was a 3-year deal. So, big money plus the trade for Jonathan Grenard.
Not a bad deal.
Pretty much. Another trade during the draft, it was the Vegas Raiders traded Tyree Wilson to the Saints in exchange for pick 150. There's also a 7th-round pick in there for the Saints. So, an edge rusher on the move to the Saints. Cleaning house there in Las Vegas. And then there was a string of 5th-year options picked up as the Eagles picked up Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. The Patriots picked up Christian Gonzalez. The Chargers picked up Quentin Johnston. The Lions picked up Jahmyr Gibbs. And I believe that is it for 5th-year options. So a bunch of players getting their 5th-year option. I imagine most of them will probably be extended this offseason, especially if you're Jahmyr Gibbs and Christian Gonzalez. To be extended pretty early this offseason. In other news, the NFL has still decided that Aaron Rodgers deserves to be in the league, as the Steelers have placed a right of first refusal tender on Aaron Rodgers. It would be a $15 million deal this season. So they have essentially made it so they have insurance on whether they can get a deal done. Why they would do this, I don't know, but it's the Steelers.
No other options.
And somehow Aaron Rodgers is still in the league.
So, it's crazy.
Continuing, we have a retiring, Justin Simmons, formerly of the Denver Broncos, has announced his retirement. Really good safety. I want to say was in the league for like 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
great career. Congrats on retirement.
Congratulations to him.
The Texans have agreed an extension with Azeez Al-Shaair. It's a 3-year extension. I do not have the monetary to it, but I cannot imagine. It is a huge extension, but is a 3-year deal for Azeez Al-Shaair.
All right.
And then the last bit of news is the New York Giants have signed DJ Reader, the defensive tackle, to a 2-year, $12.5 million deal. Reader, pretty solid defensive lineman, going to the Giants.
Nice. They're going to be a very different team this year. So,
yes,
that will be interesting to watch. And if you're a Giants fan, I hope you are excited.
I probably would be.
Oh.
We'll see what happens.
Alrighty. Well, I do believe that does it for breaking news. We are going to get into our individual teams, and as always, we are going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. Okay? So we are going to do our best to do this in order, as it has been a couple of weeks. First off, defensive tackle Nnamdi Madubuike did have neck surgery. I know it doesn't really sound like it, but that is actually really positive news for Ravens fans, as there's been a lot of questions of, is he able to play football? Is he going to? Kind of what's a timeline or a status? With the surgery comes some hope that he will be returning to the NFL and will be obviously returning to the Ravens roster, but don't know the timeline on that. So still keeping an eye on it, but are hopeful. Prior to the draft, the Ravens did pick up Zay Flowers' 5th-year option. I do think they are still working towards getting a extension done this offseason. But with his and Lamar's still kind of floating out there, getting this in, getting him locked in for another year or two is always good. So they did pick up that option. Then came the NFL draft. If you did not see, we did stream the first round or live react to it, and that was a lot of fun. We didn't get shit right, but that's okay. Well, we got one pick right, but everybody in the world got that one right. So if we'd fucked that one up too, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know what to do with that.
We would have just ended the stream right then.
Yeah, we just never mind.
No, we wouldn't have actually, because that would have been stuff worth reacting to. Is if they went with somebody other than Mendoza.
But it was a great time. We enjoyed the new format. Loved seeing it in Pittsburgh. It was great. So for the Baltimore Ravens, 2026 draft class, with their first pick, Olavega Iona, guard out of Penn State. This was who I wanted. This was who Eric DeCosta wanted. This was kind of the number one pick everyone thought the Ravens were going to take. For those upset that they did not take a wide receiver or an edge rusher, that this somehow tells you the kind of offense the Ravens are going to run, I would like you to watch accurate football. Kind of what I have to say on that. Whether Lamar's going to run more, pass more, whatever, he needs a solid O-line. And they were the worst in the league at guard last year. So
it was not good.
To shore up that position was absolutely needed. As for wide receiver, when you look at the pieces they lost, it was primarily depth, so you can get that in later rounds. As for edge, we just signed Trey Hendrickson. Mike Green is going into year 2. Once again, depth is where the pieces were missing. That is later rounds. A starter that can hit the field and play. They needed guard. They went out and got, in my opinion, the best available, the best in the draft, and what he had to say about playing for the Ravens and blocking for Lamar makes me extremely happy and excited as a Ravens fan.
And you can never underestimate picking an offensive lineman.
No.
Even if you think it's good, pick an offensive lineman. Just do it.
And when you look at some of our other offensive linemen that we've picked, Linderbaum was great. Voorhees, coming out of the season with an injury, has been kind of a disappointment. So a healthy guard that can start bodes well in Baltimore.
Yes.
With the second round pick, they selected edge rusher Zion Young. Much like Mike Green last year, there are some character concerns, which had him dropping into the second round. We shall see how that goes.
Yeah.
I am hoping a more mature setting, a more mature atmosphere will help improve some of those things. The third round, wide receiver Jacoby Lane out of USC. This is a big-bodied, go-up-and-get-'em wide receiver. I think this is a great candidate for wide receiver number 3 or special teams, as we did lose Tylan Wallace. So, pretty excited. Fourth round pick, Elijah Sarrett, wide receiver out of Indiana. This is another big-bodied wide receiver, but he's more of a route guy. I think when you're looking at Zay Flowers, who's kind of tiny, to have bigger bodies out there is always good, whether they're going to block, just help divert traffic, things like that.
I had a take on this pick.
Go ahead.
He feels a lot like an Isaiah Likely replacement.
I kind of had that thought.
Where maybe he doesn't play tight end necessarily, but he does the similar role as Likely.
Yeah.
Where he's the bigger receiver.
And I don't hate that. Again, when you have kind of a smaller wide receiver room, Bateman's not very big. Zay Flowers is, by all comparisons, tiny.
Yeah.
To have some bigger bodies in that room, I think is really exciting. I think you can kind of see the offense Deacon Doyle wants to create. And I think it gets back to kind of Ravens football and that physicality and just tougher football. And so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Out of the fourth round, still Matthew Hibner, tight end out of SMU. This is potentially a Kohler replacement. Similar size, more of a blocker. Can do a little bit in the catching, but if you look at his tape, it's more like people forget he's out there. And if we remember Kohler's kind of post-game interview, that's kind of what I expect out of Hibner. Entering the fifth round, Chandler Rivers, cornerback out of Duke. We need depth at that position. I doubt a starter, maybe a rotational guy, but we need depth. I am hoping with a more defensive-minded coaching staff that we're going to see the best possible rotation, outcome, and plan for these guys and getting back to Ravens defensive football.
And he'll probably also play special teams.
Yeah. In the fifth round still, Josh Cuevas, tight end out of Alabama. Yeah.
I think, oddly enough, it's not an exact replacement. But I think this is going to be like your Kohler or your Ricard-esque.
I think a Ricard-esque. So many offenses don't utilize a fullback, but rather keep 4 tight ends on the roster. I could see that being the path with the Ravens right now because you let Ricard walk out the door for not a lot of money. He could have been kept for that. So I kind of think the plan is to do away with a fullback and add a fourth tight end to the rotation.
And when you look at what Doyle did in Chicago, they had a lot of tight ends, and they used.
And I don't mind the
ends.
depth. We know that Lamar loves tight ends, and they tend to get beat up with him under center. So for him to have a lot of options, I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Still in the 5th round, Adam Randall, running back out of Clemson. I really like this pick. We saw kind of our depth at running back thin out, and I think they got the best available at the time. He's kind of a power back. Yes, he did deal with an ACL tear, but has been mostly healthy since. So kind of hoping good at depth, maybe a special teams guy, rotational, just fill out that back room. 6th round pick, Ryan Eckley, punter out of Michigan State. We needed a punter. The last one we drafted was Jordan Stout, who is one of the best in the league. So I have faith in the scouts that they wouldn't have wasted the pick if they didn't think he was worth it. I do not expect the transition to be smooth or perfect. I kind of expect a year 1 Tyler Luke situation. There are going to be some growing pains under this new regime. So
probably.
And then the 7th round pick, Rayshon Benny, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I think this is a good potential for nose tackle, honestly. Losing
Jones?
Fuck, I can't think of his name. He retired.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm really sorry, you guys. Cannot think of the guy's name. He did retire this offseason. Great nose tackle. I think this has the potential to be his replacement. I don't know. I'm not convinced that Minter is going to utilize a nose tackle very actively, but it's nice to have one on the roster. And I think he makes a good candidate for that.
And it's worth noting, Benny was at Michigan when Minter was there.
So they already have that connection. It's going to be kind of easy to get Benny up to speed in terms of playbook. So that's exciting.
And when you're a 7th round pick, that's important to mention.
Yeah. No, absolutely. A lot of 7th round picks don't make the roster. So having that is kind of a one, your head coach kind of vouched for you, and it will probably help your chances.
Yeah.
So congratulations to the 2026 Baltimore Ravens draft class and rookie class. Post-draft, they have signed 19 UDFAs. I do not have their names. I am not doing that right now. I will get into that in a couple of weeks when we start doing training camp and things like that.
When it matters.
I do want to... Yeah. They did sign former Brown tight end Tyler Pezza. He's primarily a blocking tight end. He also didn't have a lot of playing time, so we shall see.
He's there for training camp.
Yeah. Vega has switched to the right guard position. Historically at college, he played left guard. This was not unsurprising. Currently, Voorhees holds that right guard spot. However, I think that position is up for grabs. I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's a competition there for that. And Vega was simply moved to right guard. That was their biggest problem last year. I'm very excited to see it. I'm excited for what I've seen come out of rookie minicamp and what the coaches and other players have had to say about him.
Nice.
And the way he just composes himself. There's a video of him at college where he jumps the barrier to help the guy push up an equipment cart up the ramp. And I think that speaks to character. Absolutely. I was really excited to see that his feet allowed him to do that. So, all good things. All good things. And then obviously the competition for center continues. A little surprisingly, the biggest piece of debate has been the addition to their quarterback room in Diego Pavie. I just want to comment on this briefly. One, if you are a fan, well, let's just talk about the Ravens. Historically, they draft quarterbacks often. They didn't draft one this year. They had other needs. They picked one up in free agency. This does not mean Lamar Jackson's job is at line. This does not mean that Lamar Jackson's leaving. It means the Ravens are an intelligent, well-run organization that know it's smart to draft young, talented quarterbacks in the event that things happen. So let's just start there. If you like Diego Pavie, if you're a fan, he cannot take Lamar Jackson's job. Doesn't work that way. It's not possible. Maybe he's talented. They will trade him to someone else. He cannot take Lamar Jackson's job in the course of a training camp and an offseason. Can't be done. So if you're a fan of Pavie, putting out videos going, okay, Lamar can leave, is insane. So that's one. If you are not a fan of Diego Pavie, because I know there's a lot of those as well.
And that's fair.
A third-string quarterback at best, which is what he's competing for, the only position available for him, cannot disrupt my locker room. Okay. If a third-string quarterback can disrupt an NFL locker room, you have a bigger problem. Yes, I'm talking to the Browns.
It's a bigger issue.
Like, you have a bigger problem. And it is not your quarterback room. You have a fundamental organizational issue. And the Ravens, even with all their changes this offseason, do not have that. So, if you're not a fan of Pavie, I get it. His concerned that he's on the Ravens should not be present because he cannot disrupt this locker room.
And
they have since added 3 other quarterbacks. They have 5 quarterbacks going into training camp. He's competing for 1 spot.
I promise you, if he doesn't win the spot, he's gone.
They will not keep more than 3. It does not make any sense. They're very secure in Lamar as their starter, Snoop is their backup, and they're looking for a third string. That is it.
Yeah.
So, just for the concerns I've seen, just wanted to address it.
It's definitely an interesting one.
I was going to go through and talk about rookie numbers, and then I thought about it, and sometimes they change, so we're not going to do that. The one number change that has happened, and I think will stand, Mike Green, last year's rookie edge rusher, did switch to number 15. If you remember, Cooper Rush wore that number this past season, as he's no longer on the team. Mike Green did make the switch. It's a number he wore in college, so unsurprising. The final piece of news, long-term Ravens fans will be excited at the return of Calais Campbell.
I thought this was cool.
Signing a 1-year deal, I believe. I don't have the number on it. I apologize. I do think it's veteran minimum. I think this is for Campbell to finish his career in Baltimore.
Honest, if it's more than a 1-year deal, I would be very surprised. Isn't he like
I know it's 1
40?
year. I just don't know the money.
Oh, okay. I'm like, if it's more than 1 year,
no.
That would be a little crazy.
Yeah, so this was really exciting. With all of the youth they've added, to have a veteran and a veteran well-established with Ravens culture, I think is really exciting. Yes, I was kind of hoping Van Noy would make a return. It doesn't look like that's going to happen right now. Not saying it's impossible, just currently not seeing it. But to have Campbell back, I'm very excited. I didn't want him to leave in the first place, so this is great.
And yeah, it's impressive that he is still playing, and is actually really fucking good.
Playing at a really high level.
I don't
In
get
the
it,
last couple years,
but
he has not, I think, been able to really showcase what he is still capable of, given the teams he's been on.
yeah.
So I think this is a great veteran addition as we get new young talent and as the Ravens enter this new era of football. So really excited. I think it's been a really great time for the Ravens since the draft, post-draft, and draft night. I thought was an A plus. There wasn't anything I would have done differently. I think I would have liked maybe one or two more guards at depth, but they've found those pieces in other places, and they've kind of recouped what they lost. So this was a great night.
Yeah.
And a great weekend.
Awesome.
And they have concluded rookie minicamp. Oh, and then final piece, I believe the only player of their rookie draft class that has not signed their contract is Zion Young. I'm not sure what the holdup is, but of the 11, he is the only one still unsigned, but he was present at rookie minicamp.
Sometimes it just takes players longer to sign it.
It could be a million and one things. The fact that he was at minicamp has me currently unconcerned.
Yeah. If they show up to minicamp and they participate, then it's probably nothing. It's probably nothing to worry about. It's probably just some mild, especially when you're a second round pick. First and second round picks tend to get more negotiating power on certain parts of their deal. And some agents do it on purpose to get their client experience in the negotiation realm of the NFL. Knowing that because they're kind of locked into a certain scale, you negotiate it to give them that to give them experience on how that process will go, so that when they hit their first contract, it's not a how the fuck does this go?
That's fair.
And not most of the time the agents do it, but they do want their clients in that experience. It does happen quite a bit.
So that currently does it for the Baltimore Ravens.
All right. Well,
so we will kick it over to Seattle.
Yeah, for Seattle, in order, starting with the draft class, because I don't think anything happened prior to the Seahawks and the draft. So, for the draft class, we'll start in the first round where they picked at 32 Jadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame. If you saw the reaction, you would kind of understand. I did not want them to pick at 32. I wanted them to trade back. Everything I've heard is that they had trades in place to go back. And then teams said no after other teams traded up. Because there was that run of trades prior to the Seahawks pick, and I think that just kind of fucked the Seahawks over in terms of picking at 32. Now, who they picked at 32, I'm perfectly fine with. They needed to replace Kenneth Walker. They brought in Jadarian Price, who, in my opinion, was clearly the second best running back in the league. And I think the entire NFL knew he was the second best running back in the draft. So it made sense. It was maybe a little bit of a reach, but when you're picking 32 and you can't trade out of it, who gives a fuck? So good pick. Liked it. Probably would have done different things, but it made sense. However, with the second pick, the Seahawks, again, in the second round, picking 32nd of the round, select Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. I wanted them to trade out of this pick as well, but once I got to learn about Bud Clark, I absolutely love this pick. He's going to come in and replace Kobe Bryant. He is fantastic. He has some of the best tape you'll watch. He intercepts the football, has, I want to say, 14 or 15 interceptions in college in his seasons in college, which is fantastic. He's a great safety. I am really excited about this one. It just seems like he's going to fit so well in Seattle with his personality, with his play style. with what McDonald likes to do, this pick makes a ton of sense. And at the time, I wasn't sure about it. That was really just because I didn't know who Bud Clark was. Now, this is one of my favorite picks in the entire Seahawks draft. Like, it's awesome.
Nice.
The next pick was in the third round. They finally got to trade back. They traded from the 32nd pick of the third round down to the 35th pick in the third round and picked up a couple sixth round picks to do so. So that was cool. With that pick, they select Julian Neal, corner out of Arkansas. Seattle approached this draft with a clear intention of need. They needed to replace Kenneth Walker. They drafted Aaron Price. They needed to replace Kobe Bryant. They drafted Bud Clark. They needed to replace Tariq Woolen. They drafted Julian Neal. They just went down the line and were like, we're going to replace the guys we lost, hopefully with upgrades. I think for the most part they will be. I think Bud Clark could possibly be an upgrade over Kobe Bryant. Julian Neal could be a possible upgrade over Tariq Woolen, and then Jadarian Price is probably a wash. Kenneth Walker is very good, but we'll kind of see there. But overall, great moves. I like Neal. We'll kind of see where he fits in this corner room. Obviously, it's pretty deep. Could just be a rotational guy with special teams. We'll kind of just have to wait and see what happens in training camp with that, but still exciting nonetheless. The Seahawks went into day 3, so the rounds 4 through 7, with 2 picks. They were both in the 6th round. They ended up picking in the 5th round, or the 4th round, as they traded a 2027 4th round pick to the Browns to move up to pick 148 in the 5th round, or 4th round. With that, they selected guard Bo Stevens in the round, guard out of Iowa. To me, this is another depth piece and the eventual successor to Anthony Bradford. He could win the job in training camp. I doubt it. Not because I think Bradford's great, but because I think the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl with the offensive line they're trotting out there next year. And my guess is they don't want to, unless Bo Stevens goes out there and looks absolutely miles better than Anthony Bradford. I don't think he starts next year, but it's a good depth piece, and it is like a succession plan for when Bradford leaves in free agency at the end of next year, because I don't think Seattle's re-signing him. He is the weak link on that offensive line. But I just think, as of now, it's a depth piece with the plans for later. In the 6th round, they select Emmanuel Henderson, wide receiver out of Kansas. I didn't know who this guy was. I still don't really know who this guy is. He's probably going to play special teams. They lost a couple of key special teamers in free agency, so if he comes in and replaces them, it's a win. When the roster's this good coming off a Super Bowl, it's going to be really hard for these guys in the 6th and 7th round to make the team. It just is a fact. So if Henderson's a good special teamer, then sure, it makes sense. Another pick I really like was in the 7th round, where they picked Andre Fuller, corner out of Toledo. I think Fuller's really good. I think he has the potential to be just a depth special teamer for now, but could be really good if he puts it all together. He has the athleticism, the ball skills. There was just some things on tape he really needs to clean up. But with this coaching staff, I have faith that they can do it.
Yes.
And then a couple more trade downs where they picked up 2 more 7th round picks. With one of those picks, they took Devin Eastern, nose tackle out of Minnesota. It's a flyer on a nose tackle. I'm completely okay with it. Right now, you look at the Seahawks defensive line, and it looks really good. And then you look at their contract situation, and you're left a little nervous. You have a lot of aging players and players on the last year of their deal to bring in just someone that can be a depth piece in the 7th round to play nose tackle makes a ton of sense. And then the last pick, another special teams player, Michael Dansby, corner out of Arizona. Going to be honest, don't know anything about him. He's probably going to be special teams, and truth be told, he's probably not going to make the roster. But we'll see. I do know for a fact that the only reason the Seahawks did trade back more times to get picks, we'll talk about this in a second, is they knew they were going to have a really tough time signing UDFAs. When you're a Super Bowl champion, that is a byproduct. Agents of UDFAs tend to point their clients away from you, knowing that it's going to be a pain to make the roster. They want their clients going somewhere where it's going to be significantly easier to make the roster. And Seattle is not the place to do that right now. So I think they really made these 7th round picks because they liked these guys and did not think they were going to get to them as a UDFA. That's just my guess. That's also kind of what's been reported out there from people close to the team. So we'll see what happens. It was, all in all, I think they did well in this draft class. It is a shift from what their philosophy was previously, where they normally just take best player available. Don't look at need per se. This year, it felt much more of a need-driven draft. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I don't think it'll be a bad thing. It might take the ceiling of the draft down a little bit. Because everybody loves draft grades, I give this like a C plus B minus draft. It's perfectly acceptable when you're a Super Bowl champion in a weak draft class. It's a single in baseball. You got on base, you didn't do anything special, you didn't hit a home run, but you succeeded. And that's really all they needed to do with this draft class. So it might sound like I'm like disappointed. I'm not. It just is where this draft class is at. In terms of UDFAs, they only signed 7 of them. I don't have their names in front of me, which I don't know why. But I'm not going to look them up. We'll talk more about them in training camp. To sign 7, they had to release running back Cam Akers. I don't think there was really any surprise in this. He did not play a ton for the Seahawks when they signed him, and their running back room has some depth as is. So Akers was the odd man out. They released him just to be able to sign an extra UDFA. There is one other person I want to talk about that they had in for a camp invite, just because I think the story is kind of cool. For those of you that don't know, you have UDFAs and you have mini camp invites. The difference is UDFAs have signed a contract. They are on the 91-man or 90-man roster for training camp. It's 91 when you have an international player. The Seahawks have an international player. Camp invites are just invited to rookie minicamp with a chance to get a contract as like a tryout. One of those camp invites is Mike Wright. Now, his position is non-applicable. He, in college, has played quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive line, linebacker, corner, safety, kick coverage, kick return, punt coverage, punt return, field goal block, and has punted in college. He has played damn near every single position in college. What that means, I have no idea. I thought it was just a cool thing. I don't think he makes the 90-man roster or the 91-man roster, but who knows? Maybe the Seahawks like the fact that he could literally do just about goddamn anything. He is the Taysom Hill on steroids of like versatility. So I didn't hear a ton about him. in minicamp, which is probably not a good thing for him wanting to make the team. But it was kind of cool. Thought I'd bring it up as just a random thing. Continuing,
That's
the
fair.
Seahawks signed a couple players to their roster, including tight end Harrison Bryant. I'm going to be honest, I don't think he's going to make the team, but he is a depth piece behind Barner, Sauber, Arroyo, and Callerup. I imagine him and Callerup will fight for that fourth tight end spot. We'll see. I also am not sure the Seahawks will keep 4 tight ends, but who knows? I think it's just a depth piece going into training camp. We'll kind of see. And then they also signed defensive end Dante Fowler Jr. to a 1-year, $5 million deal. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned that they were visiting with Fowler, and then everything I heard was that it was pretty much a 95% chance that they would sign him. Well, they signed him. So, this is pretty much your Boye Mafe replacement. He will be like the 4th pass rusher. Not going to get a ton of snaps. Solid player. I mean, like, decent vet. We'll kind of see what happens. The last time the Seahawks signed a decent vet from the Cowboys on the D-line, it worked out pretty damn well. So, we'll kind of see where that goes. And then in terms of signing their draft class, 6 of the 8 players have signed. The only 2 that haven't are Jadarian Price and Bud Clark. Again, first and second round picks tend to take a second sometimes. So, not worried there. They were both at minicamp, which has wrapped up. From what I heard, they did really good. Couple funny things. I know Price was doing a couple drills and only did 1 rep of each like drill before McDonald and the coaching staffs were like, go sit down.
Just go away.
Just, you're good. Just go stand there. So there's that. So I'm not worried. Not worried about pretty much anything there. So, but that is it for the Seahawks. Good draft, solid vet signings afterwards. Cannot wait for training camp, and it'll be really interesting. I'll have to get you the UDFA names before then, because we are going to have Hard Knocks on the Seahawks, and with Hard Knocks, the UDFAs do tend to get more spotlight, because they're the stories people want to follow. So, I'll get you the names. We'll get to follow them through Hard Knocks, and it'll be really fun. So I'm kind of excited for that. I wish
Really excited.
our UDFA class was a little bigger because of that, but you got to work with what you got. So should be good.
Awesome. Well, it's hard to be the champs, honestly. It's kind of an overrated saying, but like you said, when you have such a good roster, you don't have a ton of holes, but then you have contracts, so you're like, how do we maintain this without overpaying, overdoing it in the draft? What do we need? So,
and when you then you also consider like their draft class next year, they already have 11 picks, which is why they traded the 1 to move up into that round that I mentioned earlier. They had 12 going into the draft for next year. They might get 2 more. I forgot to mention, the Vikings have like interviewed one of their front office people for their GM job, because apparently the Vikings still don't have a GM. Didn't realize that. Knew they fired theirs. Thought they hired one. So they didn't have a GM through the entirety of the draft, which is insane.
Who ran their draft?
Probably some... I have no idea. That's the problem. Coaching, scouts... Like, the front office doesn't change a whole ton between the GM, so I'm going to guess they had, like, a player personnel guy do it, but, like, still. What are we doing?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But yeah, so they're interviewing a guy on the Seahawks that would qualify as a minority candidate, which means they would get 2 third-round picks in the next year's draft if he gets hired. So they could have even more. in theory. So I don't know. But when you consider that they were able to re-sign a lot of their depth pieces, there just wasn't a ton of space for UDFAs this year. And then there's one more bit of news because I did want to mention it. There have officially been 2 bids on the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, we have talked extensively about the fact that the Seahawks have been put up for sale. There have been officially 2 bids, or what have been reported as 2 bids. The first one was from Vinod Khosla. I'm probably butchering the names, I'm going to be honest. He is the co-founder of Sun Microsystems, no idea what that is, and is worth $14+ billion. So I imagine he'll have some team going into it. It is a little weird because he's invested in the 49ers. So
You have to do that?
apparently. So I'm gonna be.
Okay.
It'll be. I wonder if it'll be something that once the NFL does their like vetting and their
They'd be like, you have to sell these shares to.
But then I
to
think
buy
that
another team.
also breaches their rules because I don't think he's owned the shares long enough to be able to sell them. There are rules in when you buy into a team, you have to hold on to the shares for I think over 5 or 6 years. It's like 5 to 8 years or something like that, and then you can sell them, and it's so that you don't have like constant selling and stuff. So that's a weird one. The other bid was put in by Aditya Mittal. Again, apologize for butchering the name. He is an Indian steel titan, and he has invested in the Boston Celtics. And then he is teaming up with former Celtics owner Wyc Grousbeck. So, pretty much Celtics ownership is looking at possibly bidding on the Seahawks. That would be not bad. The Celtics are a very good basketball team. Their ownership does a really good job with the team. And I will say, Grousbeck is the former owner. While he was the owner, was when they were winning championships. So, pretty prestigious in terms of that. And I expect that to be a possibility. We'll kind of see. Those are the first 2 confirmed bids for the Seahawks. We have no other information other than that. There's probably going to be more, and I doubt that the first 2 will be the ones, but who knows? It is just kind of interesting information to have right now that the sale of the Seahawks is officially pretty much underway.
We knew it was coming.
So hopefully it goes well. I do not expect them to be sold officially
Anytime soon.
Until like the next off season.
Yeah.
But
takes a long time. This is not a short process.
So now something might get finalized this season, but the current ownership will stay in place until the off season. They won't switch ownership mid-season. That will not happen.
Oh God, no.
So
God, no.
I don't expect anything to change until the next off season. So we'll kind of see. I know it was kind of an emotional draft as this is the last time this ownership gets to do one. And I know Schneider and company had Bert Cold, who's one of the owners, make one of the draft calls. I want to say he called Devin Eastern. So it's always been cool. Kind of unfortunate, but we'll kind of see where it goes.
Fair enough. Alrighty. Well, if that does it for football, any other random sports?
I actually don't have any.
Okay. As y'all know, I've been watching Women's Six Nations, and they only have 2 weeks left of that. So hopefully, if y'all have been watching, you've been enjoying. It's been a really great series. some kind of surprises coming out of it. Italy has not played quite as well as I expected, but we have seen massive improvements from Ireland this season, so that's been really
Nice.
exciting.
Nice.
Um, Currently leading in the standings is England, unsurprisingly, with 3 points, 3 wins, and 0 losses. Tied with them is France, also unsurprising.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much.
so yeah, it's been, or I'm sorry, 15 points. So it's been a great series. In last place is Wales, with 0 wins, unfortunately.
Yeah, that
So,
sucks.
yeah. At this point, the final is set to be France and England with 15 points for each team in 2 weeks, I believe. So it's very exciting. Enjoying it and looking forward to it.
Nice. Have not watched any of it.
Does not surprise me.
Yeah, no. It's on way too early for rugby.
It's on
So,
very early. It's on very early.
well, maybe if I'm up early one day, I'll put it on. But
I watch the third game when it's on because that's on at like 9 my time, and then watch the replays of the other 2.
yeah, maybe I'll watch the final. Maybe that'll
That's fair.
be like my way of doing it, because it's always fun. Like, rugby's a fun sport.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about it, and the scoring
That's
kind of half makes sense, but it's fun. It's rugby.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
It's been fun, but it's the only random sport I'm watching currently. It's been a lot of basketball and hockey.
Yeah, it's been pretty much basketball and hockey for me as well. So, pretty cool. All right. Well, if that is it for random sports, then I think that is it for us this week. Obviously, um, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know. We are definitely, now that we're out of the NFL draft, into the quiet season of the NFL. So,
Yep.
let us know. Is there anything y'all want us to talk about? With the quiet season in the NFL, we do still have, thankfully, basketball and hockey playoffs to kind of get us through this part until it's over, and then it's the deadest part of the sports season.
Dead.
So if there's anything you want us to get into, now is the time to tell us. It kind of gives us a nice leeway to get into new sports, figure them out, be able to talk about them. So if there's anything like that, let us know. Be happy to kind of talk about new sports. But with all that being said, thank y'all for watching. I've been Brendan.
And I've been Dallas.
Bye.